CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch.
And I don't think that you can say that CNN is anything but fair. I mean, look at that. We covered President Biden's exit from the race very closely, the pressure on him to get out. And I feel like I can speak with authority on this. I'm from Alabama. I'm from a very red state. I have a very conservative family, a lot of them who are Trump voters. They watch my show every night. And I think they know that they can trust me, that, you know, we call shit on every.
CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch, and I don't think that you can say that CNN is anything but fair. I mean, look at that. We covered President Biden's exit from the race very closely, the pressure on him to get out. And I feel like I can speak with authority on this. I'm from Alabama. I'm from a very red state. I have a very conservative family. A lot of them who are Trump voters, they watch my show every night. And I think they know that they can trust me. That, you know, we call on every side. If you thought the tension between Kaitlan Collins, Bill Maher had died down, think again. Kaitlan appears to be on a mission determined to take down conservative values, even if it risks her own reputation. Meanwhile, Bill Maher isn't backing off either. In my previous video, I went over the heated history behind their clash, and today we're diving into the latest exchanges between them, plus the reactions sparking the conversation. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss videos like this. I'm Kaitlan Collins. I'm inside the east wing of the White House right now. And if you look over my left shoulder, you can see the portrait of President Barack Obama. That, of course, was his presidential portrait that was unveiled a few years ago and installed here at the White House. One question that we had coming in was whether or not that portrait would remain up. We've seen Trump removing the portraits of his former officials at the Pentagon, like General Mark Milley and his former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, but so far all the portraits in the east wing of the White House still appear to be up. It seems like Kaitlan Collins and CNN have nothing better to do than bash Trump and take jabs at lefties like Bill Maher. If they were focused on actual news, I seriously doubt they'd be obsessing over the portraits hanging in the White House east wing, unless, of course, they're desperately looking for another reason to take shots at Trump. Spoiler alert, we'll get to that in a minute. But seriously, with an actual economic crisis unfolding, we're diving deep into presidential portraits, talk about questionable priorities. And guess what? The commoners aren't holding back. One person even wrote, "What a stupid thing to be reporting on at a time like this." Others blamed this kind of reporting for CNN's struggles, saying the reason her network is going out of business is because they focus on the unimportant. Still, some did see Kaitlan's point, with one commenting she looked disappointed that more pictures weren't removed. And then there's the comparison to Jim Osta. Some people think Kaitlan and Jim have a lot in common. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign, in the midterms that we go that, well, if you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. Pres, I consider it to be, and as you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the US. Thank you for telling me that, APPR. Why did you characterize it as such a, and because I consider an invasion you, and I have a difference of opinion. I don't know about you, but I definitely see some similarities there. Anyway, back to the video. Knowing Kaitlan Collins, there's no way she covered those White House portraits just for the fun of it. The woke crowd doesn't do anything by chance. Every action, every second, every word is calculated, especially when it's about going after Trump and derailing the Republican agenda. Let's be real, Kaitlan was probably checking if Obama's portrait was still up just to set Trump up for another round of social media backlash. I mean, why else would Trump remove portraits of some past officials but leave Obama's hanging? Seems suspicious, right? This is exactly why Bill Maher questioned her impartiality in reporting, because she often seems more like a spokesperson for Kamala Harris than a neutral journalist. Check this out. What do you think about the fact that Kamala doesn't talk to the press? In a way, I feel like it's more insulting than what Trump does, and Trump says you're the enemy of the people, which is pretty bad. But she's kind of saying is I don't need you. And I'm not talking to you. You don't matter. You're not relevant anymore to me. That's even worse than I hate you. It's like I don't think about you. I don't know if it's worse than denigrating the press on a daily basis, which is what Donald Trump did. I mean, I covered him in the White House every day as a correspondent. See what I mean? The question was simple. Why did Kamala Harris avoid talking to the press ahead of the presidential election? But somehow Kaitlan Collins managed to turn it into an opportunity to drag Donald Trump into the conversation. Classic move. Instead of addressing why the sitting vice president was dodging the media like it was a landmine, Kaitlan used Trump as a convenient distraction. It's an old trick straight out of the CNN playbook. When in doubt, blame Trump, forget holding leaders accountable, forget asking the tough questions, just pivot to Trump and hope nobody notices the dodge. But of course Bilma noticed, and he called them out for it. And honestly, can you blame Trump for calling CNN the enemy of the people when a so-called journalist can't answer a basic question? Without veering off to bash Trump, that's not journalism. That's activism pretending to be news. It's biased, it's dishonest. And it's exactly why so many people don't trust mainstream media anymore. This wasn't about seeking the truth. It was about covering for Kamala Harris. And the sad part, CNN seems to think nobody will catch on, but Maher sees it for what it is and calls it out. They was just about how great a speech it was. And I think she did fine. I didn't think it was as good as they were making it out to be. It does look like tokenism. It's kind of like the same as The View. I don't think that you can say that CNN is anything but fair. Everyone who was speaking last night, it's not like they were all Democrats. I mean, we Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, Abby Philly, they come across that analysis. They come across that way in a moment like that. It was like 5-1 Mark, even when as far as comparing CNN to The View, talk about having some serious guts. He's one of the few who isn't afraid to call out bias, even when it's coming from his own side. And honestly, that comparison cracked me up. Of all the talk shows in America, Maher put CNN on the same level as The View. That's not just a jab, that's a full-on roast. Think about it for a second. The View is basically the hot mess express of daytime TV, where facts take a backseat and shouting matches are considered debate. And Maher's out here saying, yes, CNN's right, they're now brutal. But is he wrong when CNN's reporting is as loaded with bias, spin, and emotional outbursts as The View? Maybe it's time they just own that comparison. At least The View is upfront about being opinion-driven drama. CNN still clings to this illusion of journalism, but when you're serving up gossip and partisan rants, is there really any difference? Ma didn't just throw shade, he chucked the whole tree, and CNN, they're still pretending it's all sunshine and rainbows. Oh, and you know who else tossed the whole tree? The current beau, our Tom Homan. So how many days after Trump has sworn in before this effort to carry out the mass deportations begins? I know you said it starts on day one, but after how many days will we actually start to see that happening? Day one. I love that little dramatic pause from Tom Homan before he dropped the hammer. It was like he knew Kaitlan Collins was about to hit him with that question and had his answer locked and loaded, ready to fire. Honestly, it felt like he'd been waiting for that exact moment, because let's be real, everyone saw that question coming from a mile away. Woke journalists are as predictable as a sunset. You know it's coming, you just don't know how many dramatic clouds they'll throw in for effect. And Kaitlan, she walked right into it. It's almost like these journalists follow the same tired playbook: find a conservative, ask a gotcha question, and hope they slip up. But man wasn't just ready, he was 3 steps ahead. That PA, it wasn't hesitation, it was the calm before the storm. He let Kaitlan think she had the upper hand before flipping the script, and that's what makes it so satisfying, watching the predictable media narrative crash and burn when it meets actual facts and logic. Priceless. But the best part was still to come on this effort overall, in terms of what you believe you need, and you're obviously deeply familiar with how this works and what's ahead of you. You had previously said about $86 billion was the minimum this project will cost. Do you have a better estimate now as you've been developing your plan? I never said $86 billion. That was a CNN reporter that said $86 billion. Another hammer blow for the so-called borders are, did you catch how CNN plays the misinformation game? First they throw out a narrative, and then like clockwork they frame it as if it's coming directly from Trump's camp. Classic bait and switch. Tom Homan never mentioned that $86 billion figure. Seeing did, but here comes Kaitlan asking about that exact number, pretending it came straight from home and himself. It's like the media equivalent of planting the evidence and then acting shocked when they discover it. This is how the game works. CNN floats a figure into the public conversation, lets it simmer, and then traps conservatives with it, as if it's some universally accepted fact. And if you dare push back, suddenly you're the one spreading misinformation. It's manipulative, it's dishonest. And honestly, it's getting old. But Homan, he wasn't having any of it. He saw the trap coming and tore it apart piece by piece. And that's the beauty of it, watching CNN's narrative unravel when faced with actual facts.